Hi,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon.
Anushka, you can start entering the people.
Before we move ahead with the
Hello.
Participants are requested to keep their mic off. Anushka, you can start with the session.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Rajasthan Legal Rights Consortium, I, Anushka Goyal, the Vice President,
And I, Avni Vashish, the President of RLRC.
extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today for what promises to be a powerful and insightful session on POSH compliance and awareness.
At RLRC, we aim to spark informed conversation and create spaces where legal awareness translates into real change. And today's topic is one that affects every workplace, regardless of size, industry, or location. We are so glad to have you all with us.
We are honored to be joined by a truly phenomenal speaker today, Advocate Durga Bhardwaj, a name that needs no introduction in the field of rights based advocacy. She is a practicing advocate before the Honorable Supreme Court of India, the High Court, and the various tribunals like NCLT, DRT, Consumer Commissions, and more. Her areas of expertise include both commercial and criminal litigation.
That's not all. Ms. Bharadwaj is also a certified POSH and POCSO trainer and holds dual certification in POSH compliance and training. She is the founder of Cherished Rights Consortium, a think tank dedicated to women and child rights. In 2024, she was appointed amicus curiae by the Honorable Supreme Court in several matters and was also honored by Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, former Chief Justice of India, for her contribution to child protection laws. It's a privilege to learn from someone who works so powerfully, blends legal expertise, compassion, and action.
Today's webinar is all about understanding and decoding the POSH Act, its purpose, its implementation, and why it matters more than ever in workplaces today. Here's a quick overview of the key topics that ma'am will be covering, such as what is considered sexual harassment, how workplace is defined under the Act, redressal mechanisms like internal and local committees, employer obligations and penalties, intersection of POSH with IPC and POCSO a little bit, and inclusive considerations around harassment faced by men and LGBTQIA individuals as well.
The goal is to leave you not with just legal information, but also practical tools to recognize, prevent, and act on workplace harassment, and to contribute to safer and more inclusive spaces. We encourage everyone to be attentive, take notes, and keep your questions ready. We'll be having an interactive question and answer session after the talk. You are also welcome to drop your questions in the chat box as the session progresses, but kindly refrain from interrupting the speaker in between the session repeatedly.
With that, let's not delay the any further. It's time to hand over the virtual mic to our esteemed speaker.
Ma'am, we are truly honored to have you with us today. The screen is all yours.
Thank you so much, Avni. Thank you so much, Anushka, for thank WIC to speak about such a law, which really needs people out there spreading awareness and letting people know what are compliances which follows through this act. Now, to begin with, Anushka and Avni, I would need your guidance. Please let me know whether my screen and my voice is audible perfectly. And now I will be sharing my screen, so let me know whether my PPT is also visible.
Sure.
Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible and your voice is audible.
Yes.
So, Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act. This was implemented back there in 2030. But one thing that we have to understand before we move ahead with the session is the sacrifice which follows this act. This sacrifice is of a lady named Bhavri Devi. Bhavri Devi was a social rights activist. She was working in Rajasthan. Because she was a social rights activist, so we can consider her workplace to be the entire village. One day she got a call. She got a call that his infant is being married off. She runs away. She tries to rescue the infant. She tries that the marriage has to be stopped. But unfortunately, she could not stop the marriage. The infant got married off. And once the infant got married off, the families of the infant got a little provoked by this action. Once they got provoked by the action, what they did was they took her out of her workplace. They took her out in the agricultural land. She was raped by 5 men right in front of her husband. Right in front of her husband. And once she tried to follow the legal recourse, police did not entertain her properly. She tried approaching the court of law. She was still not approached, and her, doubts, her agony was not heard properly. Later on, what happened was one NGO named by Vishakha came up front, tried to take up her case, and they raised her voice. When it was in the trial court, the matter, all the 5 accused were acquitted. Once the matter got some limelight, later on, the court ruled out her in favor. In 1997, we had Vishakha guidelines because of her sacrifice. But it was not till year 2013, post Nirbhaya rape case, that we realized that we have to altogether have an act which specifically talks about sexual harassment of women at workplace. The thing is, sexual harassment of workplace, women at workplace act is quite different from other criminal justice laws. The reason being, we always have redressal mechanism when it comes to other criminal justice laws. We have the courts of law, we have the appellate tribunals, we have the appellate courts, we have the Supreme Court of India, we have the High Court. We have so many laws in action that we already know what recourse we have to opt for if in case we are subjected to any criminal offense. But what do you do if someone passes on a slip stating, I love you? You're sitting at your desk, someone comes up during lunch break, they passes the slips and they keeps it on your table. It's been 1 time, it's been 2 times, multiple times you receive a slip with I love you written on it, and it is causing you some psychological problems. You're not able to focus properly at your workplace. You're not able to focus properly professionally. Then in that case, what happens is your professional growth gets hampered. Now, where do I go if in case someone passes a slip saying, I love you? Do I even have any remedy available at my disposal? Yes, you do have it. The remedy available for you is under this act in itself. Sexual harassment at workplace now has its ambit being widened through various Supreme Court judgments, which says even if you're working remotely, even if you are a teacher, even if you are a college student, even if you are a visitor at a place, you would still be given remedy under this act. Now, I am thinking of taking this session generally so that this knowledge gets impacted, this knowledge gets readily available for all the professionals out there, for all the employees, for all the employers out there. So it's my humble request for all the law students, to all the legal professionals, if you have any typical legal-based questions, be it what are your opinion on these judgments, or what are your opinions on some contrast between IPC and POCSO and POSH Act, I would really be obliged and grateful if you could direct those kind of questions to me via DM. But today we'll keep this session general so that this knowledge becomes readily available for every employee, and every general public out there. Moving ahead with this agenda of the session, we'll be first covering what is sexual harassment. Second, we will be covering the understanding and the definition of workplace under the POSH Act, the mandatory applicability of the POSH Act, what constitutes sexual harassment at workplace, the types and forms of harassment, psychological, emotional, and professional effects, the execution and implementation of the POSH Act, the redressal mechanisms available for you, which could be the IC, the LC, and I will be talking a bit about the tribunals also. Then we have the employer duties and the penalties which follow if you do not comply with it. Then we have the IPC. I will be laying down certain comparison between the IPC provisions and the POSH Act, and I will be talking briefly about what all IPC provisions were later on introduced back in 2013 post Nirbhaya rape case and because of this act. But I will not be going too much into the details. Intersection of POSH and POCSO. And one thing, because I saw all of your questions being posed to me via the Google Forms, and none of your questions are going to be unanswered. I saw your questions that what all recourse does men have in case they are subjected to sexual harassment, and is POSH Act inclusive of the LGBTQIA plus community? So I will be answering your question, although it does not come under the POSH Act. I will still be answering what all remedies are available for men if they are subjected to sexual harassment at workplace, and is the POSH Act inclusive of the LGBTQIA plus community? Anushka or Avneet, can you play the first video, please?
Yes,
Sure,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, thank you, ma'am.
Anushka, can you please turn on the volume of the video, please?
Just a minute, ma'am. There's an issue on my end. I'll just play it. Just a minute.
Guys, let me know if in case my audio is also not audible by you all. So I'll try turning it on from my end.
Ma'am, you are audible, ma'am.
It was harmless flirt.
Can you hear the video, please? Tell me.
Yes, ma'am. The video is audible on your end.
Okay.
I don't think
Yes,
the video is
ma'am.
audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Audible.
So you watch this video. Start from this.
It was just a joke. It was just a compliment. It was harmless flirting. No, it was sexual harassment. According to a recent survey, nearly 80% women never report sexual harassment as they refrain from making a complaint due to fear, embarrassment, and lack of confidence. Fear and lack of confidence among employees leads to low job satisfaction that affects the productivity and workplace culture. That might also lead to losing valuable employees. All this even after a law, POSH, Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace, was formulated with the main objective of protecting employees against sexual harassment and promising a safe and secure working environment for them. Let us take a look at a scenario. As Ria was entering her office, her colleague Raj taps her on the shoulder and tells her how hot she is looking in the dress that she is wearing. This makes Ria uncomfortable. She looks at Raj disapprovingly. She tells him not to touch her and mind his language. Raj apologizes and it never happens again. Is Ria being sexually harassed by Raj? The answer is no. This was certainly unprofessional and inappropriate, but was not sexual harassment, as this was a one-time event that was neither severe nor frequent, and it never happened again after Ria expressed her displeasure. However, had Raj continued making Ria uncomfortable, which is inappropriate behavior, it would be considered sexual harassment. Therefore, it is important for organizations to inform and sensitize employees about what is POSH and what does it mandate. What is sexual harassment? Types of sexual harassment. Steps to prevent sexual harassment at workplace. Steps to take if you're being sexually harassed. And the policies and committees in place. We at UniEd work with your team.
I'm net gone out.
Is my PPT visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now we saw one thing. Although according to Kavya, according to the lady mentioned in the video, she was being sexually harassed, right? Because he tapped on her shoulder. Or maybe he could have made a one-time gesture, which she did not find comfortable. But how did we categorize that it was not sexual harassment? We categorized it as, usually the pattern is, if in case a single event occurs of such an intensity that it impacts the professional outcome of a person, lady specifically, then that amounts to sexual harassment. Now, there might be small instances, but recurring in nature. It could be so persistent that 10 or 15 of those small events could in the long term impact your professional outcome. So it depends on the persistency. It depends upon the kind of gesture. It depends upon the kind of touch that you had inflicted on the lady, that it gets categorized into sexual harassment. Now, how do we say that is sexual harassment and that is not sexual harassment? This law is basically perspective-based law, right? Usually the pattern that is being seen in the IC committees or investigative trials is that it is always one person's word another against another's. It is always what she says versus what he meant. So it really depends upon your professional conduct. We'll be talking descriptively about it, but let's move ahead with scenario number 1. I am going to leave the chat open. People can unmute themselves and present their opinions. So this is scenario number 1. I want to make it very interactive. So scenario number 1 says Kavya was introduced to Jay during a training program. During the training, Kavya and Jay started talking. And to Kavya's delight, she found that Jay was from the training division, the department she was planning to move to. Jay asked Kavya to send him her resume after the training program. Kavya sent her a profile to Jay and was excited to hear that he had an opening for her. Kavya joined Jay's team. Jay asked Kavya out for a dinner a few times and she agreed willingly. Now focus upon one thing. She agreed willingly, right? Slowly the workload increased, and once when Jay asked Kavya out for dinner, she refused. At this, Jay insisted that Kavya go out for dinner with him as she owed it to him, right? Kavya then told Jay that from then on, their relationship was so strictly professional. Jay kept calling her and sending her emails. Kavya begged Jay to stop, and it didn't. He started taking time off her work to avoid it, right? Unmute yourself and let me know whether this is sexual harassment or not.
Ma'am, this is sexual harassment.
This is sexual harassment. Now you
Yes,
give
ma'am.
reasoning behind your answer also.
Ma'am, because as you said in the story, the Kavya and the Jay, the Kavya agreed for the dinner just because it is professional, not any personal meeting.
Right.
But on the other hand, Jay just accepted it as a personal.
Okay.
Yeah, and nothing is from the side of the Kavya that she want to intimidate with the or is emotionally connected with the Jay.
Okay.
So according to me, I believe that Jay sexually harassed the Kavya.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ma'am, because I also see, ma'am, I also see in one movie, uh, Wahi. This is a South movie,
Okay.
Wahi.
Okay.
And the story is somehow related with that movie also, ma'am.
Okay. So you say that this is sexual harassment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, I believe this is not sexual harassment
Okay.
because he has not touched her inappropriately. He has just
Okay.
asked her out, and he was a bit sorry, ma'am, and he was a bit angry. But sexual harassment is very different from this.
Okay.
So this is not sexual harassment.
Anyone else?
Ma'am, this is not a sexual harassment. This is a mental harassment.
Okay. So my screen is audible, visible, right?
Yes,
You all
ma'am.
can. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Oh.
ma'am, it is visible,
Yes,
but the
sir.
last line, last second or second last lines are not visible, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
Ma'am?
I'll ask the moderator to share the PPT then.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am, we're
guys.
doing
Moving ahead with the answer. I see a lot of raised hands.
Ma'am,
Um, I
good
see a lot of
afternoon,
raised
ma'am.
hands. Please unmute yourself. Moderator, please share the screen, and I would request everyone to mute themselves. Okay.
And this would be more appropriate stalking. The ingredients of the offense stalking would be attracted and not the sexual harassment.
Okay. Now taking on from here, I remember one girl unmuted herself and she said that this does not amount to sexual harassment because it was not physical. I forgot her name.
Yes,
See,
ma'am.
right. So how do you categorize sexual harassment and how do you categorize sexual assault? Thing is, it does not necessarily mean that sexual harassment needs to be specifically physical. It could be non-verbal, it could be verbal, it could be mental, it could be psychological also. What if I come up, there's few ladies, standing right in front of me, I am a boy, right? I blink my eyes, okay? I wink, or I pass some inappropriate gestures. What if I do such? I do this. Isn't it sexual harassment? It
Ma'am,
wasn't
it is.
physical. It wasn't physical.
Ma'am, this is a sexual harassment.
Exactly. So it need not to be specifically physical for it to amount as sexual harassment. Something that impacts my professional growth would amount to sexual harassment, right? So it need not to be physical. Now moving ahead with this scenario, what the answer could be, I asked you all to focus on one line, that she willingly went ahead with it, right? We all must have seen multiple times in the newspapers, in the case laws that are being given out currently by Supreme Court of India, High Court. A lot of times we have seen that consent needs to be recurring in nature. If you consent to something once, it does not mean that you have given consent for it lifetime. Just because I first time consented to something does not mean that I have consented for it lifetime. I agreed to go out with you once, but you'll have to ask me every time we go out. One time I could have said, fair enough, I'll sit with you during lunch. Does not mean that I'm owed to you, that I am owed for it lifetime, that every time I'm going to have lunch, I'm going to sit with you. So you need to understand that consent needs to be taken every time. Second, it need not to be physical. And yes, answering the scenario, it is sexual harassment at workplace. Did she feel comfortable? What is the last line? It says Kavya begged Jay to stop, but he didn't, and she started taking time off work to avoid him. Could she properly work in a professional sphere? No, she could not. It impacted her professional growth. It's high time we realize that these kind of situations impact our professional growth. We all, regardless of our gender, we have taken a long journey. We have embarked on a long journey to come where we are today. We have been given opportunities, and if in case we mistake such instances as not sexual harassment, we will get our professional outcome impacted. Right? Anushka, can we move ahead with the second slide?
Yes.
The one after it, please. Right. So what is sexual harassment? Please go to the slide which talks about sexual harassment. Right. So what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is any unwelcomed sexual behavior. Right? I did not ask for it. It was just given to me without asking for it. Right? I did not ask Jay to call me continuously. I did not ask Jay to call me, stalk me, or record my videos. I did not ask for it. It's unwelcomed. Now, any unwelcomed behavior that creates an offensive, humiliating, intimidating environment for me, and it becomes impossible for me to work in such an environment, it amounts to sexual harassment. Right? When I talk about sexual harassment right now, it talks about sexual harassment at workplace context, right? I'm not talking about in general, because sexual harassment at workplace specifically talks about it being objected at workplaces. Anushka, please move ahead with the second slide. Right. Now we have to understand workplace under the Act. This Act is a flag bearer of workplace harassment, right? So we need to understand the key terms mentioned in the case, or we need to understand the key terms being referred to in the law. First is sexual harassment, second is workplace, and third is women. Now, understanding what is workplace, we'll address the doubts, Jagdeep. Sir, please hold on. Let us first complete the PPT or the agenda, and then we'll move ahead with the questionnaire round. Understanding what is workplace. Workplace could be any enterprise, any establishment, any institution, any office, any department, which could be wholly or fully run by the government, wholly or fully private in nature. It could be a cooperative society. It could be a private run sector. It could be a service providing agency. It could be an educational, entertainment, industrial, health services, anything that relates to production, supply, sale, distribution services. Do you realize how huge the ambit of workplace is in this act? The workplace has such a huge horizon that it somewhere encompasses all of the types of workplaces, be it remote, be it physical, be it any sort of workplace. It could be a hospital, it could be a nursing home. You could be providing teaching services to someone via your laptop. It could be during your course of employment. It could be via your course of transportation for your employment. You could be undertaking some sort of journey. You could be in a dwelling house. You could be in a house in general, because this act also includes the maids. So it could be any sort of place that provides employment to any person, regardless of being a government agency, being a private agency. It encompasses somewhere, everywhere, every place. Move ahead with the next slide, Anushka. was for her to go through those, redressal mechanism, for her to file an FIR and then move ahead with the courts of law. How difficult it is for you, for any aggrieved women, to follow the usual course of action available at your disposal if in case you have a sexual harassment case.
Even she was an IS officer and he was IPS.
Exactly. She had all the resources. She had the money. She had the resources. She could have lawyers. But this opportunity is not available for so many people out there. People are scared. People are scared that, somehow down the line their professional journey could be impacted. People would stop giving them work. Right. So these kind of cases really does impact your professional growth. Anushka, I will try sharing the screen now. Please let me know whether it's visible or not. I'll try sharing. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Your screen is visible.
Very. So now, third scenario. Neeta was a management trainee, and during an initial training at work, she met another trainee, Raja. Soon after, Raja started pestering Neeta with unnecessary questions and putting pressure on her to have lunch with him alone. She consistently refused. Later, he started asking her to have coffee with him, and then one day sent her a message which said, "You are the most beautiful woman in the world, and I really miss not having you in my life." Neeta was shocked. She was frightened that she took off 2 days from her work. When she came back to work, she got another message from Raja which said, "Where are you? I miss looking at you." Neeta was horrified and filed a harassment case against it. So is it sexual harassment at workplace or is it not? Guys, please open up your chat. Please unmute yourself and let me know whether this is sexual harassment or not.
This is not a sexual harassment case at workplace.
How? Please give me. So whenever you answer, please give reasoning behind it.
Because he is chasing her outside workplace. So when she was not with him at office or in the institute where she joined.
Okay, chalo. Let's take this
Ma'am,
example.
but
Right?
ma'am,
But it is a
ma'am,
case
but
of
in
stalking,
the
ma'am. Stalking. It is a case of stalking, ma'am.
Okay, so
ma'am,
who's the second
but
person is trying to say? Please tell.
ma'am, but in the hostile sexual harassment type, you stated that hostile sexual harassment basically means something which uh, basically affect the working environment.
True.
So, ma'am, yes, ma'am, and that girls, ma'am, workplace has been affected, ma'am, by it.
Okay. Now let's give it another take. Let's see it from another perspective.
Ma'am, it can
Imagine,
be,
hypothetically speaking,
ma'am, it can be different from different women, ma'am.
different women. I do not understand what could be a different woman.
Ma'am,
He is saying
basically,
that this is another PPT. He was talking, I think, about Kavya. It is Neeta.
Okay, no worries. So you can see Neeta wala aspect, right? Neeta and Raja. Neeta and Raja is visible to you all, right?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, you haven't stopped sharing your screen, but we're also sharing it on our side. So I think the
Okay,
people are
please,
getting confused.
Anushka, please, I will be taking up with the presentation. If in case mine is properly visible, then you can stop sharing.
Ma'am, actually, your presentation is stuck on the Kavya slide. That's why we started sharing
Okay. No worries, no
correct
worries, no
slide.
worries, no worries.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Um, but this thing happened during the course of work, so it should count as sexual harassment, right?
okay. So now answering Jagdeep's first query, it happened outside workplace. If in case I do take that perspective, how do you categorize workplace? How do you categorize workplace? What is my workplace? If in case I join via my laptop, does that amount as workplace? If in case I am there
yes, ma'am.
Exactly, extended workplace. What if, imagine, let's take hypothetically speaking, my manager asks me to travel from one place to another to conduct a session. Right. I am there in a bus. I am traveling with my employees. I'm traveling from one place to another, and I'm not in my workplace. So, if in case one of the employees pass on a comment, would that not amount as sexual harassment at workplace? That would. It's extended workplace. Absolutely rightly mentioned in the chat box that it's extended workplace, right? And this would amount as a sexual harassment because she was horrified. She was scared. It was impacting her workplace. It was impacting her professional growth. No, see, one thing is during the course of employment, there's a different perspective when it comes as when we talk about the course of employment. The recent judgments are trying to expand the horizon, and when we talk about sexual harassment being subjected when it's a course of employment or it from being outside the course of employment, it really depends scenario based query. So the kind of situation you are in, at that kind of scenario, it is wise enough for you to categorize it as out of the course of employment or within the course of employment, right? So there's a group of professional IC trainers that I am a part of, and one of the trainer had a query that a lady, when she went home, she started receiving messages. She started receiving messages from one of her employees, and that guy was not A, messaging her during the course of employment, B, not during her being in a workplace. Some messages which could have hampered her professional growth. It was just a normal WhatsApp message. He started messaging her continuously. He got a number out of her from a WhatsApp group and he started messaging her. Is she in the course of employment? No. But would that affect her would that affect her professional growth? Yes. Would that amount at sexual harassment? Yes. Even if I am not currently a part of my services, what if, let's take hypothetically speaking, I am there attending a Teams meeting with all of my fellow mates, okay, all of my fellow employees. The meeting got over. Post my meeting hours, my manager keeps calling me. Please join again. Durga, we want to talk to you about something. My manager keeps calling me. So it's post hours. I'm not in the usual course of my employment. It's post my office hours. Would that amount as sexual harassment? Absolutely. Because we have the same employer, we are at the same workplace, it's going to hamper my professional growth. It's going to create a hostile environment for me to work in. So obviously that would amount as sexual harassment at workplace. Right? And Jagdeep sir, answering your question, it does amount to sexual harassment at workplace. Moving ahead with the next slide, please. Absolutely, Suman sir. Absolutely. Can we move ahead with the next slide? Anushka, can we move ahead with the next slide, please? Yes. Now comes the technical part. Now that it was all perspective based, now it's something that really requires you all to take out a notepad and write it down, whatever I'm trying to show you all on the PPT and whatever I'm trying to say over here in the session. The execution and implementation of the POSH Act. I remember someone asking me this question on the Google form, and what is the difference between execution and implementation? This is a small and a basic Google search question, but I will answer it anyways. Execution and implementation is a little different. It has a twisted difference between it. Implementation is as I make a law, make some sort of rules and regulation, I say that it could be applied over here and there. Execution is if I say that the redressal mechanism, if in case you do not comply with it, these are the sort of penalties that would follow. Right? So I am telling you that you need to execute it, otherwise this will happen. Right? So this is the difference between implementation and execution. Now coming on to the execution and implementation of the POSH Act. POSH Act when it talks about the IC committees, the internal committee and its implementation, it needs to be necessarily and mandatorily be formulated at a place where there are more than 10 plus people. Right? Now, you need to focus upon one thing. I'm talking about people over here. I'm not talking women. They all could be men, but I still need to make an IC committee because the intern could be a female. The domestic worker could be a female. Just hypothetically speaking, that the people who visit me could be female. So it does not necessarily mean that if in case there's men only in the committee, then IC committee will not be formed. However, when we go upon the formulation of the IC committee, we talk about it that 50% of it has to be more than women. Right? So you can introduce an external member who's necessarily a female. You can introduce someone who has, who's a woman, has an expertise, or is a lawyer who works in the in the Department of Women Rights. So those sort of, inclusions you can bring about when there are all men in the organization. So wherever there are 10 or more than employees in a place, you have to necessarily have the IC committee in work. POSH Act, however, gets applied everywhere, in every sort of employment agency or organization services. IC Act, however, gets implemented, formation of IC, however, gets implemented when there are more than 10 plus employees. Right? So it could be ad hoc agreement setup. It could be a temporary setup. It could be a permanent setup. There could be just consultants over there, just interns over there, contractual workers over there. But as long as it exceeds the 10 plus workers threshold, you have to have the IC committee at its place, right? Which is known as the internal committee. Earlier it was called as internal complaints committee. Now it's called as internal committee. Move ahead with the next slide, please. You all can write it down. If in case you need the PPT, I'll share it across. Anushka, can we have the next slide, please?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, when we proceed to the next slide, it takes some time to reflect.
No worries, no worries, please. Sure, Archana ma'am. Please, I'll definitely share you the PPT and the content. And I've also made a consolidated list of case laws, important case laws. Even if you want all of it, you can reach out to me via DM. You can reach out to me via my mail ID. I will be attaching that at the end of the session. And I will also be requesting the organizing committee to drop that in the chat box once the session gets over. And then you can reach out to me once this gets over, and I'll send you the PPT, the content, the consolidated case laws list, everything.
Ma'am, I have a doubt on composition of internal complaint committee.
Gaurav sir, the composition of IC, I will be talking about that. They're just taking some time to go ahead with the PPT. Otherwise, I've already mentioned that in the PPT and the agenda itself. Just that when the next slide comes up, we'll talk about the committee members also. Now the redressal mechanisms. There are two sorts of redressal mechanisms available for you if you are subjected to sexual harassment at workplace. First is the internal complaint committee, the IC, internal committee. Second is the LC, right? Anushka, do Control plus Z. So nonetheless, so there are two sort of redressal mechanisms available for you. First is the IC. IC is the internal committee. Second is the LC, the local committee. Both of them are covered under this act itself. IC is the internal committee which is formulated within the organization. Any sort of government organization that I'm referring to, any sort of private organization that I'm referring to, the IC is formulated at that level. LC, however, is formulated at a district level. Right. So the composition, as asked by Gaurav sir, what is the composition of the IC? This PPT page talks about the composition of the IC. So there has to be one chairperson, that chairperson needs to be necessarily a female at the most senior, most level in that organization, right? Next is 2 members. There needs to be 2 members picked up, nominated from within the organization, which has an expertise in women rights, or they have expertise when it comes to the IC committee or POSH compliances, any sort of that. They have expertise in those areas. The 2 members. And the third is the external member. We have to have one external member be a part of our IC committee. That external member ensures that there is no sort of biasness when it comes to the complaint redressal mechanisms. As in, if 3 members of the IC committees are from the same organization, there could be some sort of biasness. But when we introduce an external member that has no link with the organization altogether, we ensure that the biasness is not there once we are addressing the grievances. So in order to maintain that unbiased opinion, we have to have the external member. External member can be someone who has an expertise in women rights, or maybe someone who runs an NGO. The NGO needs to be necessarily a women oriented, right oriented NGO, or an advocate who has knowledge over it. Now, when I tell about any person who runs an NGO, anyone can be running an NGO on animal rights. Can we introduce that person as an external member? No, it would be defeating the purpose. There was a judgment recently given by the Supreme Court of India which said that you need to be very diligent while you formulate your IC committee. You cannot introduce just any another external member who could or could not have expertise in this field. You need to necessarily have an external member who could give their unbiased opinion and has expertise in this matter, right? So we need to necessarily have a person who knows how to address the issues of sexual harassment. This is the composition of the internal committee. Gaurav sir, I hope this answers your question. Next, we move ahead with the next slide, please. Absolutely. So the action time. How does the complaint gets addressed? Now I will be going within the ground reality. Let's take an example. I have been subjected to sexual harassment at workplace. I work in an organization where there is an IC committee in place. What do is I go up to the IC committee members, any member, it could be the chairperson, it could be the members, it could be the external member. Now, this act makes it a mandate that in places of conspicuous areas, you need to necessarily show that the IC committee is in regulation, right? You need to have some sort of boards, banners, posters, flyers out there, or maybe if in case you have your website, you have to show it on your website that you have an IC committee in place. The mail ID of the IC committee members, the IC committee in general, what are the position of the IC committee members that are there taking up your grievances, who are they, how to reach out to them. These sort of flyers, posters, banners needs to be readily available for people and the public out there who visit your premises for them to know about, right? So if in case I have been subjected to sexual harassment and I move across a corridor and I see there is a board which tells these are the few members of the IC committee and this is the mail ID you can reach out to them on. I pick up the mail ID, I could send them a mail ID, I could write them a WhatsApp message, whatever works out for you. I could write it in handwritten also, but it needs to be a written complaint. Prakash sir, I will answer your question at the end of the session, please. So it needs to be a written complaint. You cannot verbally go and tell that, ma'am, please file my case. Obviously, if I go and verbally tell that I have a case to file, the IC committee members have to support me, right? They have to assist me for me to write the complaint if in case I want to. But the complaint needs to be necessarily in a written format. Now, the complaint gets to the knowledge of the IC committee members. 7 days from receiving that complaint. So first point is complaint by the complainant. So within 7 days that I received the complaint, I have to furnish the complaint to the other party, the respondent, within the 7 days timeline. Now, if in case, let's take example that there were 5 instances where I was sexually harassed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This happened in the year 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay. When do I file the complaint? I can file the complaint within 30 days of the last offense. So the last time it happened, I have a timeline of 3 months to file that complaint. Limitation Act is applicable. No, Reena ma'am, see, Limitation Act per se is not applicable in this act. This act in itself talks about the limitation guidelines. So we are not going to refer to any other act other than this.